friend of mine who I've known for about a year or two, and this guy's really helped me to change my perspective on life. So what it is that he's very experienced in the field of psychology, and what that allows him to do is understand how the human being works, how the mind works, how their emotions work. Because what used to happen was I would get loads of different feelings and I wouldn't be able to connect them. I remember about maybe 2-3 years ago, I had graduated, I couldn't find a job, I was feeling very depressed, I was feeling very down. I felt like I wasn't worth anything. And you know how that feeling is when you're sending out 100 CVs and no one's they're replying to you. And on top of that, you're getting pressured by people who are telling you you're not trying hard enough. And you're thinking to yourself, what is hard enough, right? Yeah. That was a period of depression for me. That's the first time I actually realized I was depressed. Yeah. And it was hard for me to accept that because generally speaking, not just in the community, but a lot of people just don't like this concept of depression or admitting they're depressed because it's seen as a negative thing. Now, that was my first period of depression. I would say that over the years, I still had some form of depression to deal with. And I would say within this past year, it still reached its peak. I had loads of anxiety. I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know why these feelings were coming about. So it was when I spoke to my friend, I felt, I spoke to him for a long time. So it wasn't just a one-off session. You know, we spent a lot of time speaking. And one thing which I really appreciated was that I felt like there was relief. I felt like there was weight being taken off my shoulders. Wow. because what it is that, as we mentioned before, it's almost like mental slavery that we're facing these days, right? Yeah. When we think of happiness, we tend to neglect our mental state of health. And when I was able to speak to him and tell him what's going on, it actually made me realize how important my mental state of health is. And it's, for example...
What was it about him that freed you, though?
It was him asking me about my life, asking me how, how things occur, and explaining, how can I say it?
How it affects you and what
getting
you
you
do.
to express yourself, really. So he kind of
and
like
different perspectives,
you.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the analogy I use is that, imagine you want to go to the gym to get strong, right? No one's got a problem with the gym. But when it comes to your mind, the tools aren't there. Because what happens a lot of times in life, you're facing issues and people say it's all in your mind, which is true. But it's also a paradox because it's not there. Now, if you don't have the tools to deal with what's in your mind, how are you going to overcome it? But it was my my experience with him that really freed me from that that box I was in. I was afraid to even admit that I had these feelings, and now I'm still on my journey to overcoming them. But I feel much stronger than I was before, because I don't just view myself as a physical person, a spiritual person, a mental person. I think these are all combined. And if you were to neglect one of them, then the other two wouldn't work as well as they should. And one thing that I just want to tell people is that don't neglect your mental health. I want to help people to realize that we should get away from this taboo of that there's something wrong with you if there's if you're facing something mentally. No, it's just like it's something, a spiritual problem or a physical problem. But that guy has really helped me out.
No, stress is very real. And I was one of those that thought that, for example, when somebody would take off stress from work, and I'd be like, what are you talking about? What stress, would you have? And obviously this is years ago. Only when it affects you do you realize this is pretty much real. Yeah. It's thick, it's right out there, it's weighing heavy on you because everything comes at you at once. And well, when it comes in terms of inspiration, right off the top of my head, I can't really come up with one individual, but I can tell you, yes, I've been inspired throughout my life and I continue to be inspired. Whether that's as simple as a quote from a contemporary scholar or an author, for whatever background he's from, if he makes sense to me, he's a wise man. I obviously look into who this individual is, what they've done with their lives, and they've already done great things in their life that I would love to do. And then they come out at you and they tell you these really nice sayings and quotes. And speaking of sayings, I know it's going to sound cliche, but for example, from the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, quotes from them, quotes from Najm Blaga, excerpts from those books. Even in TFL, you know how they have those little signboards and stuff. There's a quote by Imam Ali, and I really try to take that in, and I try to implement that. And I don't want to just quickly read it. I think that's one of the mistakes that I know I did, and maybe a lot of the people who are watching may make. You quickly read it, you don't think about it, you don't contemplate. What I've changed about myself is actually read it again, understand it, because sometimes it has been translated from Arabic to English. You know, you do need to think about what the message is and really take it in and try to implement that in your life. And I think once I began to do that, not just with the quotes from our imams, but anything that I find substances, anything that I feel is, you know, full of goodness, I do try to take it, I try to implement it. So yeah, collectively, I've been inspired by a very many number of people, and these people have gone through the trials and tribulations of life. You know, I'm not talking about some, you know, teenage kid who's never really done anything. I'm talking about the wise men of our era and the era of our past.
That's some inspirational teenage kids.
Well, I'm not saying there isn't, but I'm just trying to say that that's how that's my formula. That's how I kind of look into who should I really listen to, and if it makes sense to me, it's logic, it's reasoning, and it doesn't conflict with my beliefs, my principles. You know, I take it in. And that could be even, I dare to say, Facebook. I mean, I stay away from Facebook as much as I can, but sometimes there's some really good stuff out there, because people taking those quotes and they've actually glorified them, and they've kind of put it out there, and they done correctly. Even WhatsApp, you know, sometimes, you know, you get these, most of the times you get crap, but sometimes you get these gems, and you got to look out for them. So you got to be clever enough to see what requires your time, your 2 minutes to up to 10 minutes and what have you. And you just try to, you know, take that forward in your life, implement it, and that's what I think is a source of inspiration for me anyway.
I think for me, it's very obvious who inspired me. I think, and people who know me would know that my teacher, he really affected my life. So when I went to Lebanon, I went there. I couldn't speak much Arabic. And I had a lot of like issues with that, especially that my parents wanted me to come back home and not study in the seminary, and they missed me and I missed my parents. So for the first whole year, I was like
homesick.
I was homesick and I couldn't understand the language. So I'm in the middle here. I don't know what's going on. The food was good, right? The food?
Lebanese food.
Rice and bread in the houza, bro.
Don't they have
it's
like
not. Yeah, Lebanese food is good. Yeah, we get once a week. We get like.
In the hostel. It's not a 5-star hostel.
But so I was going through a very difficult time in not understanding the language and not knowing where I'm going in life and missing my parents and living off very little money, and really then you wonder like why am I here, you know? Am I gonna should I just leave it?
What gave you the courage to take such a big step?
For me, I sincerely felt like Imam al-Mahdi Fajr Sharif is coming soon, and I just felt like my role was to be in that area of the world. And to be honest, I didn't plan to go there. I was wondering what's the best way for me to serve, and then I figured let me find out more about my religion, and I thought 1 year, but the more I studied, the more I wanted to know. So the more I realized I didn't know, rather. So I started studying, but you know, language is the key to knowledge, and I couldn't get the language, so I couldn't get the knowledge. And
even though you're Arab, you're an Arab.
But classical Arabic is very different. Arabic grammar is very different.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And if you want to extract the wisdom from the sources, you need real Arabic. And so I'm going through this really difficult time, and there are various different people on this path that inspired me. So then there's this one brother, his name was Mahdi, and he would come into class and he was blind. Wow. And he would be in the class with us, and he had a Quran in Braille. And when the teacher would ask questions, Mahdi would always be the first one to answer, and he would record the lessons, and that's how he would revise. And so I'd look at Mahdi and I think, this brother has no eyes, and he's on the path. And then there was an African brother that came, I think from Cameroon, his name was Jundullah. And Jundullah, he used to tell us like, you Lebanese people are weak, like in Arabic. He's like, نحن في الجبال ندرس وفي الطريق ندرس. Like we'll study in the mountains, we study on the streets. You Lebanese guys don't study properly, and because he's like he learned the Arabic language like 3 months, and he was really proud of it. He said,
Wow.
rub that in my face.
I'd be proud too.
Yeah,
3
and,
months
and he
only.
used to tell me he wants to sleep on the book. Like I used to walk in the library and see him sleeping on the book. He goes, لعل الله يعطيني علما. He goes, hopefully God will give me knowledge if I sleep on the book. So I always remember that. Anyway, so there's all these
Turn into a
inspirational
smoothie.
people on the way.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there one night in the library, and it was like a year and a half into my studies, and I'm thinking, like, you know, what should I do? And someone told me that Allama Tabatabai, rahimahullah, one of our greatest scholars in the last century, if not in our tradition, he told me that he failed his Arabic course several times before he succeeded. I'm like, what? Allama Tabatabai? Yeah. And that very night, as I was going up into my room, there was a post on the door, on the wall, next to my door, about Allama Tabatabai saying that, you know, he wasn't diligent in his studies in the beginning, but then Turk has changed his life. And he felt an invisible hand take him and guide him, you know, on this path. And he became Allama. So I was like, Allama, this is, you know, I don't really believe in coincidences very much. You know, in Kung Fu Panda, Master Oogway says there are no coincidences. So I'm like, oh, okay, wow, you know. Anyway, I don't know how I'm going to do this, and then this man enters my life. So there was various, like Mahdi and Jundullah and these guys, but this man, my sheikh, he met me, and I told him my grievances, and he told me to come with him to the south of Lebanon. And he was a principal of another hawza, but he said, come with me and I'll teach you. And so he really became like God bless my father, but I was there alone. He became like another father to me over there, and he would sit with me every night, and I would think, wow, like the principal of the house is sitting with me, and I'm like, I can barely read, I understand what's happening in the books, but suddenly everything clicked. All the subjects started making sense. I guess I needed someone to believe in me and sit with me and explain to me. And he became like a mentor to me, to the point that I would actually sit down and just watch him sometimes. Look at how he walks and how he eats and how he's really forgotten himself in the service of the people. He barely sleeps and he's always serving everyone. And he would come to me in my dreams and tell me off sometimes. and till now, like, me and him have a great relationship. So whenever I'm traveling, I still contact him, of course. I go visit him, and hopefully next year I'll be back with him studying. But that man, to me, changed my life upside down. And I'll end my story on this note, when I once told him, when I was telling him my grievances and where I didn't know where to go, I told him, like, sometimes I just feel like everything's going dark and there's no more light, there's no more hope. And he told me, and it's so simple what he said, but it sticks with me till now. He said, if you are sincere to Allah, if you are sincere and you persevere, so you don't give up, then Allah will eventually give you an opening. It's impossible that He will ever leave you. So all I had to do was stay strong on that path, as hard as it was for me. I had to keep going, persevere, and as much as I can stay sincere, and the opening would come, you know. And he guaranteed me that, and it happened that year. And there's several openings that come from God. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't stop those openings for you in your life. But if you keep persevering and you're sincere, sometimes it's the most simplest of advice that changes someone's life.
Guys, we've gone deep, but that's all we have time for today. Until next time.